Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
This is America's Outdoor Talk program.
Are you ready to get rowdy?
Outdoors This Week with your host, Alex Langer. Alex Langer. We've got fishing.
Believe me, folks, I have been there, and the fishing has been tremendous.
Hiking.
Adios. Have a nice trip.
Camping.
This is a real adventure.
How do you know?
When you're an experienced woodsman like me, you get a feel for these things.
Oh, really?
Heck, we've even got kayaking.
I'm going to show you kids the time of your life.
We've got all the info you need for a safe and fun day in the sun.
It's a darn good thing we found you when we did. There's something horrible roaming these woods.
And you've got Outdoors This Week. Outdoors This Week. And now, here's your host, Alex Langer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That would be me. And I am excited this morning because we have a very, very special guest with us. Now, I realize I always say that, and most of the time you really shouldn't believe me. But this time I swear it's true. There are a few bass fishing professionals on the national scene like Mark Menendez. For certain, each one of the anglers that competes on the sport's grandest stages who work to promote their sponsors, but Mark Menendez always seems to go the extra mile. On the water, the Paducah, Kentucky angler has spent years earning a reputation of a warrior on tour. He puts on his paint and he gives them the war whoop. That's why they call him the warrior. His career earnings have been more than $1 million, along with the success of the individual tournaments and season-long point standings are a testament to his passion and skill for the sport. While he thrives in the competition, Menendez has also proven himself to be a capable promoter and communicator in both large and small venues. He's got people that flock to him. I was at the Bassmaster Classic in February of this year, and there was a big line. The only other line that was as big was for the Swamp People, and the Swamp People were TV stars.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like Cajun ne'er-do-wells. And
I've seen the show. It's crazy.
It is. I mean, I love the show.
I do too.
And I get a lot of crap for loving the show, and especially from Mike Jackson. The only guy that had a bigger line was Mark Menendez.
That's amazing.
People love this guy. They love Mark Menendez. So that's it. And then we have all of our usual suspects today. We have Larry Whiteley from Bass Pro. We've got Sammy Lee from the Sammy Lee Show, and we have Wade Bourne from
Wired to Hunt.
Wired to Hunt, right. Thanks, Lynn. And that's it.
That's it.
That's our show. So hang on, folks. We'll be back right after this.
Hang tight. More of America's Outdoor Talk program, Outdoors This Week, after this.
Hi folks, Ron Linder here for Linder's Angling Edge Television. Seen on the WFN network, as well as you can go see us on the web at lindersanglingedge.com, lindersanglingedge.com. You can watch any of our shows or any of the other many video clips that we have available, or go on to YouTube and go under Linder's Angling Edge and go look us up out there as well. Got some sad news to call. My good friend, Paul Growell, who was the inventor of the polar tip-up, as well as many ice fishing items, as well as accessories, was tragically killed the other day by apparently or alleged drunken driver, along with his wife in a road to Wisconsin. His 13-year-old daughter was injured, but she is doing better. She was in the back seat. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. I had talked to him, oddly, at 2 o'clock. I just got through speaking to him, and then we got a call later that evening, and like I says, he passed away, or was killed, actually, and he and his wife, Joanna, were both killed by a drunken driver, alleged drunken driver, 24 years old, at 5:30 in the afternoon. One of the things, Paul was a strong, believer in Jesus. He was, I have no problem with that. He's went to a better place, and Joanna as well. My prayers, of course, are for his daughter, who was Paul bought a lot of stuff in China. He spent, he was at China all the time. And he found this orphan girl in China, and he went through all kinds of machinations to get her. So he says 13 years ago, got her as a baby, got her over here. Joanna wanted her, and she is the survivor of the family now. They've got some older children as well, Ken and Nate, which run HT Enterprises, which sells all kinds of rods, reels, lines, etc. At any rate, she's the survivor, and Paul, it had to be the hand of God that got this little girl. She was an orphan. 13 years later, she's an orphan again. So that's the tough side of the story. Paul's accomplishments were, anyway, he's been said by some to single-handedly brought ice fishing up to the levels it is today, with all kinds of equipment, ideas, concepts, selling. Walmart was one of his big outfits, but he sold to every place with HT Enterprises stuff. And anyway, I'm going to the funeral tomorrow. A lot of the tackle industry will be there, and I'm going to send him off and just pray that I know he and Joanna are in a better place. That's it for now, and see you later, folks. Ron Linder signing off.
Camp cooking tips coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Have you ever wanted to disappear into the woods? Have you ever wanted to tie your own flies, but never taken the time? Have you ever wanted to speak turkey? Then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
Write down the menu for all meals for your trip. This helps you pack all the ingredients you'll need without forgetting a key ingredient. Measure and combine dry ingredients in Ziploc bags prior to packing. Make sure you label the bag for the appropriate meal. Now, if possible, purchase a separate set of dishes, silverware, dishpan, wash rag, towels, and soap just for your camping trips. Store them in a plastic container that can be pulled out and ready to go for each trip. Meals that can be cooked at home ahead of time and travel well in a cooler will save a lot of time, especially on the first night of your trip. Carry instant or dried soups to serve with meals on cold or rainy days. Use aluminum foil for making packet meals. Just wrap up some sliced potatoes, onions, carrots, zucchini, salt and pepper, and a little butter. Seal the ends well and lay it on the grill to roast. Now enjoy the food you prepared and your time away in our great outdoors. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Now, Larry, you're making me hungry. You're not supposed to do that. Don't describe all those sizzling, wonderful things on the grill. Get out of here, you crazy guy. Listen, we have a very special guest with us today. He's become one of my favorites on the show. Let me give you the stats. He's from Paducah, Kentucky. I mean, don't hold that against him. He is the Duke of Paducah. He's won over $1 million in his career. He has proven himself to be an extremely capable promoter and communicator. I know that for a fact because the line to see him at this past Bassmaster Classic just went on and on and on. I said, who is that? Is that the president? It's got to be the president, right? It was Mark Menendez. So Mark is a favorite wherever he goes for many reasons. He shows people that he's a family man, and he teaches people how to reach their dreams. Without any further ado, the Duke of Paducah, Kentucky, Mark Menendez. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great, Alex. That's quite the accolades there, but you did forget my Kentucky Colonel Award as well, so I got you on that one.
Are you also a Kentucky Colonel? I didn't know that.
Yes, sir, I am.
And how, might I ask, do you get to be a Kentucky Colonel?
It just has more to do with who you know in state government than anything else. So
really?
It's not the biggest award that can be bestowed on you, but you can have a lot of fun with it.
Kind of like Massachusetts. It's like who you know in state government.
Exactly.
Listen, Mark, how are you doing on the trail?
Well, the season is over with the Elite Series, and the PAA Tour just ended, and I'm literally when you called, was loading the truck to head to the Houston area to fish the PAA final event, which is the Toyota Texas Big Bass Classic. And, Alex, that's the third largest payout in professional fishing. And I'm really excited to go because it is the toughest field in bass fishing.
What are the first two payouts? Is the Bassmaster Classic the biggest one?
Well, the Classic and the FLW Cup, they are $500,000 payouts. And this one pays $150,000 with only 46 anglers. The 46 anglers, Alex, you should see their resumes. It's the top 15 in the Bass Elites, the top 15 on the FLW Tour, and the top 15 on the PAA. And then the defending champion gets to come back. So you're really going to have your work cut out to win this event.
So who's the favorite? And don't say Mark Menendez.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Last year Keith Combs won the tournament in sudden death fish-off over Mike Iaconelli. So they figured something out last season that put them way ahead of the rest of the field, and yet they tied. Keith won in about a 15-minute fish-off where he caught this little paltry pound-and-a-half, 14-inch bass that won him $150,000. The best of the best are going to be there, Alex, and it will really be hard to pick a racehorse, but I'll give Keith the nod just because he won last year.
What do you think about Major League Fishing? Have you ever seen Major League Fishing?
Well, Major League Fishing is really a neat concept. It's bringing fishing a whole different look and appeal. It's fast-paced. The guys are fantastic fishermen, and I think it's filling a niche in the fishing market just to show what professional fishing is all about. I think it's a really neat idea.
Has the PAA responded to Major League Fishing or not really?
Well, the PAA hasn't directly, just because Major League Fishing is just basically a television show at this point.
Right, exactly.
With Bass and FLW and PAA, we're all tournament organizations, so there's really not a conflict of interest amongst the four entities. So, but Major League Fishing just brings a whole new setup, whole new amount of energy to fishing, and it may be what we need to get more people involved in fishing.
Do you think tournaments are kind of running out of steam, like 40, 50 years later, or you think that's not true?
Well, I think tournament fishing is extremely popular. I think what has happened is there are so many diversions and diversifications in fishing now, Alex, that you have three different tournament organizations, that individual events have lost their momentum because there's another one next week, and there's another one next week. So maybe that has changed a little bit. When with Bass we only had the invitationals, and you waited on pins and needles to wait for the Bassmaster television show to tell you who won, because there wasn't the internet at that time. Information dissemination is so much faster. It's taken a little steam out of it.
Mark, we got to take a quick break, but I want you to think about this question before we get back. Think about it during the break. Are there too many tournaments and fishing organizations? We'll take the call when we come back with Mark Menendez. Don't go away.
More of America's favorite outdoor talk program, Outdoors This Week, after these messages.
It takes a whole lot of fishing.
Wow! Woo! Hold on to that, and that's a good one since 1984. Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
Where do you go when you have a fishing problem? Well, if you're me, you go see Rick Clunn. Hello, this is Sammy Lee. Today I'll talk with this 4-time Bassmaster Classic winner about some fishing questions that I have. But first, this message.
Your attention, please.
Coming soon. Coming soon. Colors. Colors that will change. Colors that will change your fishing forever. The most revolutionary lures ever made. Only from Bleeding Belly's Lure Company. Coming soon.
When most people I know have a fishing problem, they go see a professional, as I did recently when I spoke to 4-time Bassmaster Classic champion and the man that was voted as the greatest bass angler of all time, Rick Clunn. And while talking with Rick, I asked him what advice he'd give a beginning fisherman.
You've got to learn the lure is not a lure, but a tool. It's a tool. And you got to learn when to use them. And if you go back through all the year records, there's only about 3 lures that catch all the fish. And those are no secrets. They're spinner-based crankbaits and plastic worms. And plastic worms include, jig and eels and finesse baits, any bottom-bouncing bait like that. Those are the 3 dominant baits. Mm-hmm. So basically all it boils down to is that you master those 3. Don't get into the habit of saying, well, I'm just a spinnerbait fisherman or a topwater fisherman, or I'm just a worm fisherman, I like fishing that other stuff. Because once you do, then you limit yourself. So you got to master all 3. And you got to know when to use them. It's just like when do you use a hammer or when do you use a screwdriver, Mm-hmm. Don't get them mixed up. Don't use a screwdriver to try to put a nail in, or a hammer to drive in a screw. I mean, that's an analogy, but it's that silly as far as the way we fish lures. The lures are a tool that's designed to fish certain types of water efficiently. And you've got to learn what those types are, and that's how you choose a lure. You don't choose it because it's your favorite or because you think the fish are hitting this one. Mm-hmm. You choose it because it's going to work. That type of water is the most efficient of any bait you got.
Rick Clun will join me again next time to continue talking about how to properly choose fishing lures. So I hope you'll join us. I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, tight lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by Spectraverse, the ultimate color-changing technology. HuntMate, the best hunting app for your iPhone. By UFP, America's leading maker of brake systems for boat trailers. And by Bleeding Belly's Lures, the bait that actually changes color.
Why, thanks, Sammy Lee. And the last time I saw Sammy, he was giving away the induction into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. I think that's where my next guest, Mark Menendez, is going to end up, in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. He has won over $1 million in his career. He has become a millionaire through catching fish. Without any further ado, Mark Menendez. Mark, I had you think about a question over the break. Are there too many bass tournaments and organizations?
Well, I really don't think so, Alex. What I do think is when you get down the line, we have lots and lots of club organizations and smaller organizations that may not be capable during their tournaments of giving the fish the respect that they need and taking better care of those fish that are caught in their events. We've got a responsibility for the next generation of anglers to make sure that the population of fish in our waters and streams is at its highest level. I think we've done a great job since the 60s and 70s with all the pollution. We've cleaned up the waters. Fish populations are as high as I ever remember on some of these lakes and streams that I go to. So I think we just need to take just a step back, take better care of our resource, and promote that instead of who wins the biggest check.
You really think fishing is better than you've ever remembered it, correct?
I do. On the venues that I've toured this season alone, record catches in some places. At Bull Shoals, Alex, I caught 250 bass in the 4 days of the event.
Wow.
I mean, it was ridiculous. My hands looked like I had been playing with the cheese grater. You go to Falcon Lake down south in Texas. It's the best place in the world to catch bass. Kentucky Lake has seen a resurgence. The entire Tennessee River is on fire. You go to Lake St. Clair up north. Can you imagine 3 days of fishing and almost 70 pounds of smallmouth being weighed in? And for the guy that wins, and the guy that's in second's got 68? We have done a great job of taking care of the resource, and we just have to continue to do so.
You're right. I think when all this started back in the 60s and 70s, I mean, Ray Scott really pioneered catch and release, and I used to run tournaments for a while. We were kind of feeling our way through at that time. How do you really do catch and release? But I think they've probably honed it to a new level these days.
Well, they have, and catch and release is just a huge, important part of our fishing. But let's not forget that in the early days of bass, they actually went out and had a PEGA polluter program and filed lawsuits with the United States federal government with people that were dumping raw sewage and chemicals and all these bad things into our waters. So bass was at the forefront of that, not only catch and release in tournaments, but they were taking care of our resource way before anybody else was.
I remember that from the early days. I don't think they get enough credit for that.
Well, they really don't. And, Ray Scott was he was such the salesman on everything that he did. But doggone it, he was a rough-riding, rootin'-tootin' cowboy going up against huge corporations with very little resources of his own. and he was successful in having things change in laws and things to help our waters. And I give Ray a big tip of the hat to that.
A lot of people don't know that he got Helen Sevier. He hired her as his secretary at the very beginning from Morris Dees. Morris was the founder of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I think maybe some of the tactics of the Southern Poverty Law Center rubbed off on Ray Scott.
Well, I'm sure they did. And Mrs. Sevier was she was just a savvy business person and a very smart individual that who later on went on to become the owner of Bass after Ray sold the organization, and she did wonderful work with Bass as well through the 90s.
I've always admired Helen. She was a woman in a man's world, and she pulled it off, and there was no affirmative action or anything like that for her. She bucked up, she toughed it out, and she won the respect of everybody fishing for bass.
No, she most certainly did. And, Alex, one of the things about Miss Helen that I remember the most is she had the ability to remember everyone's first name.
Yeah.
It was always, Mark, how are you doing? What's going on? And it just made you feel so warm and special when you were around her. You knew she was carrying the big guns.
That's true of many successful politicians. They always remember detail. They remember your first name, and they remember what you do. I think Ronald Reagan had especially a keen memory. And, he would say, how you doing? How's the new dozer doing? He would remember what you did if you bought a new bulldozer or anything like that.
Exactly. I don't have that skill, Alex, but I can remember a bass that I caught 45 years ago and told you exactly how that fish bit, what I caught it on, how I caught it. I can remember all those things, but I can't remember who I was even fishing with those days.
I know what you're saying. I remember sometimes bass from 30 or 40 years ago like it was yesterday. I think it just means that I'm getting old.
Well, it could be. We all are, but those fishing opportunities and every hour that we fish can keep us close to our youth, and that's why I love it so much.
That's a great insight. The hours we spend fishing bring us closer to our youth. I'm gonna go fishing more now that I've heard that. Mark, Rick Clunn, who we all know and respect, talked about lures as tools. Do you agree with that?
I definitely do agree with that. A lot of Rick Clunn's philosophy towards fishing, I adapted into mine in my early formative years, and I agree with him 100%. The controversy of the Alabama rig that has hit here in the last couple of years, it's a tool. It's not an end-all, but when bass are suspended in the late fall and winter, it is the best tool to use. Yeah. Not to say that you can't catch them on other tools or other lures, but that's the best one. Every category of lures that we have has a specific purpose in my boat, and I use them as tools.
The Alabama rig really mimics a small group of fish that's broken away from the school, which we've never had a lure to do that.
Well, it's not really a lure, Alex. I look at it more as a device that allows a presentation with more than one lure. That's how I kind of view it. And it's amazing the predatory response that this device, the Alabama rig, has hit upon. It absolutely is the perfect imitation in that suspended water column, high in the water column, in that colder water temperature.
We got to take a break right now, but when we come back, I want to talk more about the Alabama rig and also about lures. Can you come back?
Absolutely.
All right, stay with us, folks. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Don't change that dial. Alex will be right back with more of Outdoors This Week after these messages.
Papa was a fishing man. Papa was a fishing man. He loved his cars and his steel guitars. Papa was a fishing man. Ooh, a fishing man.
All over the country, there's a wave of interest in youth shooting programs, and the Scholastic Clay Target program is leading the way. Kids are joining school teams. They're shooting clay targets competitively. They're learning discipline, how to concentrate, how to function as a team member, and other positives. I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Hunt Radio. Today, Bill Dunn of the National Shooting Sports Foundation provides an overview of this great new opportunity for student athletes.
More Wired to Hunt Radio coming up.
For a day at the range, it's hard to beat an accurate pistol and lots of .22 long rifle ammunition. Folks at Smith & Wesson couldn't agree more, and the new M&P 22 pistol fits the bill perfectly. The M&P 22 combines the look, feel, and familiar operating features of the trusted M&P series of centerfire pistols. The M&P 22 is perfect for training or simple shooting enjoyment. To learn more about this new M&P rimfire pistol, visit www.smith-wesson.com.
Planning to head outdoors today? The National Shooting Sports Foundation reminds you to check the fire danger levels in your area. Whether target shooting, camping, or even parking a car with a hot exhaust, remember to take precautions. If you're going shooting in dry conditions, minimize the possible risk of fire by not using steel-jacketed or steel core ammunition, tracer rounds, or exploding targets. As we know, wildfires have many possible causes. Don't be one of them.
This is Wired to Hunt Radio.
Visit your local gun range and you're likely to see kids waiting their turn on the firing line to break clay targets. And they're also likely to be enrolled in the Scholastic Clay Target Program, which is open to boys and girls from elementary level through high school. Through learning to shoot clay targets, these youngsters have fun, they learn safety and team spirit and other virtues. Here's Bill Dunn of the National Shooting Sports Foundation with more about kids and shotguns and the spread of a wonderful concept.
A program that we helped start is called the Scholastic Clay Target Program, which is basically the Little League of shooting sports. All these kids get together, they form teams with their parents, just like Little League. They form sporting clays teams, skeet teams, trap teams, and you go out to the national championships for this. It's basically the Little League World Series. You see all the parents dressed up in their same colors as their kids, and they're cheering them on, and it's a great thing to see. And that program just continues to grow in every single state. We see it here in New England, all the way out to California, everywhere. Like, this program's pretty big right now.
Tomorrow, Bill Dunn returns with all the information you need to start a Scholastic Clay Target Program in your local community. And that's today's Wired to Hunt Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening and get outside.
Thanks, Wade. And my guest for the next 5 minutes until we finish the show is a pro by the name of Mark Menendez. He is a bass fishing professional, and if you've ever watched any kind of competition, you've seen Mark, and he thrives in competition. He has proven himself to be an extremely capable communicator, and he works tirelessly, and he is available for public appearances, both large and small. He made a public appearance at the Bassmaster Classic. I didn't know who the big line was for. Seriously, I thought it was somebody special. In fact, it was. The only line that was as big.
Swamp people.
Swamp people, right. Swamp
yeah.
people. Mark, we were talking about the Alabama rig. Finish your thoughts on that.
Well, it's like I said before, Alex, it's a device that allows an angler to use more than one lure at one time. And whether it's ethical or unethical, that's in the own mind of the angler, but it is a fish-producing device, and it really, really will catch them on that suspended cold water period when they're chasing shad around. They just can't help themselves. It's just a response that works very, very well.
They think it's a little breakaway from a school, right?
Yeah, it looks just like several minnows that have broken away, and obviously, you know, when the hunter cuts one part of the prey away from the group, it's a much more likely animal to get eaten. So that's exactly what it does. And now it takes a lot of work, Alex, to throw it. That's a lot of weight with the wires and the jig heads and the Shadowlicious swim bodies, and it is hard to throw.
It's like 6 or 7 ounces. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a lot, and you need a heavy braided line and a big 8-foot long luge rod and reel, and you know, it's hard on the elbows and wrists, so it's not for everyone.
It's like throwing a saltwater rod.
Oh, absolutely. It is a lot of work, but it's just as if you're making 5 casts in one cast with those 5 different lures on there.
Right.
The one thing I would say to the listeners is go and check your state laws on how many hooks that you can cast. There are different laws about how many hooks an angler can use at one time, and I would hate for someone to be out there throwing this new device and end up getting a ticket because they didn't read their laws. Go check your state laws.
I wanted to go through all the lures with you, but we probably only have time for one lure. So pick a lure and tell us how to fish it.
Well, I tell you, if you've only got one to pick, my choice would be a Strike King spinnerbait. A spinnerbait you can fish from the top of the water column all the way to dragging it on the bottom. You can change blades, change skirts, change colors, changed trailers on there. A spinnerbait is one that doesn't get fished as much as it used to, but you know what, Alex? They will eat it from the top to the bottom, warm water to cold water, and if I only had one, it would be a Strike King spinnerbait.
People did used to fish spinnerbaits a lot more than they do now. Why is that?
Well, trends change. Different lures come out. The one that kind of slowed the spinnerbait down was a bladed jig, a chatterbait style bait.
Yeah.
That kind of changed the way we looked at things, and it just created another tool for us to use, like Rick Clunn said. And a spinnerbait is still an extremely effective way to catch fish. In fact, I had a good payday the other day, and my biggest bass of the entire tournament was caught on a spinnerbait. So they will still bite it, and it does catch big fish.
It does catch big fish, and some of my biggest fish I've ever caught were in a spinnerbait. There's something about a spinnerbait that's magic.
Well, it really is, Alex, and I'm looking on my wall at a 13-pound, 9-ounce fish that I caught in megabucks back in 1997, and that was the biggest bass ever caught in the Bassmaster tournament up until 1999, and that fish ate a spinnerbait.
Wow. What's your favorite color of spinnerbait?
I would choose chartreuse and white as being my favorite color. It's the most all-around color, but I play a lot with translucent colors, silver glitters on clear strands of skirts, gold glitters. I make them look translucent, make them move very fast so the bass doesn't get a good look at them in clear water, and I've had some devastating strikes from smallmouth and largemouth both doing that. That's my favorite way to fish it, is rip a spinnerbait as fast as possible. Van
Dam fishes a spinnerbait a lot more than people realize. He casts right into the cover and structure.
He does, and that's the cool thing about the way a spinnerbait is made. It's made very much like a safety pin that has been opened, and it's extremely weedless when fishing in heavy, heavy cover, and that's what makes it such a successful lure.
All right, Mark, unfortunately, we're out of time, so thank you very much for joining us. Where can people see you next? Where are you going to be?
Well, I will be in Houston, actually at Lake Conroe next week for the Toyota Texas Big Bass Classic, and then we've got some things on video that you may see here soon, so. And the next place you'll probably see me is the Eastern Sports Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'll be there giving seminars at the Eastern Sports Show. So that's my next two, sports show in the spring and fishing tournament that's this next week in Texas. I'm a man on the move.
All right, Mark Menendez, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to visit with us, and good luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you, Alex. Look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, thanks, Mark, and thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on another Outdoors This Week. Bye-bye.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.